And welcome back to A Neighbor's Choice Radio, the most electrifying show in media where we look to solve real problems people suffer from. You know, whether it's pollution, whether it's, trying to find new opportunities for jobs or even medicine, some of these big chronic illnesses that people have fear of and they have suffering through. And so we try to just roll up our sleeves, talk to innovators, people who are on the front lines of innovation and challenging groupthink and getting real results. And so we're here with Dr. Thomas Seyfried, who is from Boston College, and he's dedicated his life to challenging the reigning government-sponsored and propped up paradigm about cancer, that it's genetic. He says, no, it's actually something that can be solved through energy. Dr. Yu, you're a physicist. You're in the house giving us our perspective on new innovation for science. Do you have a question?
Oh, yes. First of all, Dr. Seyfried, it's what an honor to hear you in person. This is the best cancer lesson I ever learned. Okay. I wanted to explain, see what I understand, see if that's correct. So when you say, cancer is not, genetic disease, so basically you mean have nothing to do with our parents or with our ancestors. It's about our life, individual life ourselves. Is that right?
Yeah, well, what we can inherit from our parents is risk. So there are some genes like the BRCA1 that you hear about with Angelina Jolie, and then you have certain other inherited genes. Now, these genes put you at risk for cancer only if the gene damages the mitochondria, like I was saying before. So, as Otto Warburg said, there are many secondary causes of cancer, but there's only one primary cause, and that's the damage to the respiration, the mitochondria in the cell. So, if you inherit a gene from your parents that puts you at a risk, that gene damages the respiration. However, we know that no gene is 100% penetrant, meaning that if everybody has that gene, they definitely get the disease. We know that BRCA1 is about 50% penetrant. That means that 50% of the people that have the mutation in that gene don't get cancer. The mutation causes cancer only if you damage the respiration. So that means the gene is not a primary cause, it's a secondary cause. The only primary cause is damage to the respiration. So if that's the case, you can institute lifestyle changes to significantly reduce the risk of getting cancer, despite the fact that you may have inherited a risk factor from your parents. So this is the issue.
Great answer. Okay. So now I want to go further. So you mentioned about the normal cell versus cancer cell. So basically the cancer cell, if it's a metabolic process, so being damaged by some kind of environmental cause, right? After it damaged. So what happens? The cell lost its respiration function. Is that correct?
Yeah. So what happens, this goes back, so when the cell loses its respiration, it signals to the nucleus to say, okay, we are suffocating. And it doesn't happen overnight. Like Otto Warburg said, if the respiration is damaged too acutely, the cell will die and, of course, never become cancer. So what causes cancer is a chronic damage to the respiration over time. It could be, months, years, decades. The problem is the cell gradually loses its capacity to breathe oxygen and begins to ferment. And there's a very sophisticated signaling process that allows some cells to upregulate pathways to generate energy from fermentation, this ancient pathway. Now, you also have to realize that all of the cells that existed on our planet before oxygen came into the environment were highly proliferative. They would proliferate like crazy until they used up the fermentable fuels in the environment, and then they would die. The cancer cell is doing the exact same thing. It's entering into a state of unbridled proliferation, which is the definition of cancer. Cancer is cell division out of control. That's the medical definition of cancer. And what these cancer cells are doing is simply falling back on this pathway that existed for all cells before oxygen came in, and then they would die when you took away the fermentable fuels. So what's driving the cancer in our body is two fuels, glucose and glutamine. When you take glucose and glutamine away, the cancer cells die. And if you do it the right way, you can enhance the health of the normal cells while killing the tumor cells without toxicity. The problem is the medical establishment, for whatever reason, fails to understand this simple biological fact.
Wonderful, wonderful. So that explains why fermentation process is a very long process. It's a slow process.
Yes.
Because like wine, right? That's what I think of fermentation, of wine.
Wine, right.
Yes,
because you lost the faster.
But that's yeast. That's yeast fermentation.
Yeast
You're making
fermentation,
alcohol.
yes.
What we call in this, it's called lactic acid fermentation. This is what happens when you ferment glucose into lactic acid. You're forming lactic acid, and this causes the acidification of the cancer microenvironment. This is why you get horrible smells from cancer. This is why it smells like rotting flesh and all this other stuff. This is from the fermentation metabolism. You go into the clinics and you see cancer. Some of these poor people, sometimes the smell from opening up the cavity is stifling. This is from the fermentation metabolism. So you automatically, you already know, what these cells are doing. So the problem is you just got to simply take away their fermentable fuels. This is not a complicated problem. In fact, it's so simple, it's embarrassing. But the problem is that when you think the disease is caused by gene mutations, you're not thinking about fermentation.
Wow. So we're talking here with Dr. Thomas Seyfried, who is a pioneer challenging the groupthink of cancer research and finding significant results when he focuses on diet combined with glutamine inhibitors, which is a cheaper drug than what's currently used with chemo and radiation. And I am fascinated by this. Dr. Yu, you are a physicist that challenges groupthink in your field, and I see a lot of resonance with both of these ideas and how it might actually apply here. And again, we're just here to rethink these ideas. Doesn't mean we have all the final answers. Yes. We want to challenge these groupthinks and see if maybe we can get some new insights. We have a caller that is from Mount Verde, and you're a doctor. Is that correct, John?
In a manner of speaking.
Okay.
Yeah.
Go ahead with
orally speaking, I should say.
Okay, what's your question?
My question is, this kind of makes sense to me. I can agree with it, but isn't there a certain amount of natural degradation of the mitochondria as we age also, so they lose some of their capability to breathe as we speak?
Great question, John.
Yes.
Dr. Seyfried, what would you say to that?
Yes, he's absolutely correct. In fact, we die because our mitochondria go dead. And that's the aging process, and that's one of the great phenomena. Now, here's the situation. It comes back to thermodynamics. It's the second law of thermodynamics, which is called entropy or disorder. Everyone on the planet will die. All things will die eventually because we run out of energy because of disorder, entropy. And entropy, aging is entropy. And if you keep your mitochondria healthy, all you do is delay the inevitable. You don't live forever. You're just going to delay the inevitable. This gentleman who just called is absolutely right. Mitochondria are responsible for the aging process, but if they're damaged too early, they will lead to the formation of cancer.
John, any other questions?
No, that makes perfect sense. All things to entropy.
Thank you. I appreciate your call. At 407-916-5400, we're speaking with Dr. Thomas Seyfried, and we're going to hold just for a second because on the next segment, we're going to get into some of the things that people can learn from Dr. Seyfried going forward. You're listening to A Neighbor's Choice Radio on News Radio WFLA. I'll see you in a second.